All right, everyone. Today's guest is someone who actually walks the walk. While most people online are busy teaching theory, this woman has spent over 18 years in the trenches, swinging hammers, managing crews, and investing her own money in real estate. She's the creator behind You Can DIY Homes on YouTube, a channel that's inspired thousands of people to pick up the tools, learn the trades, and take ownership of their financial future. But what really makes this conversation powerful isn't just her experience, it's her honesty after years of grinding. She hit a wall, stepped away from her podcast, and started asking the hard questions a lot of us avoid. Am I actually creating value or just adding to the noise? So today she's back stronger and wiser than ever to talk about burnout, rebuilding, and what it truly takes to build a life with your hands and your heart. So welcome, Emily Lopez.
Thank you for having me. An intro always makes it's like no one talks about you that way in real life. So you're like, oh, I'm always like, this is cooler than me, like every time. So thanks.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you were happy to jump on. I think it's going to be a great building of a relationship. I hope to get you on some live streams. But quickly, before we dig into your comeback story, I'd like you to kind of give me a 60-second pitch on who Emily Lopez is.
All right. So I can talk fast, so I can get a lot in there. When I was in high school, I got really lucky and I had a couple teachers that were real estate investors offer me a job. I was a student, just thought this is a job. I was in high school. I was like, I'm making $10 an hour, and this was a while ago. And so I was excited to have that job. Never thought it would be something that I really would do. Worked for them. They had trailer parks. Everyone thinks trailer parks are cool now. They're not when you're 17 and dead cats are falling in your face because you're in the underbelly of a trailer. So worked for them all through high school, college, went the traditional route. Everyone said, get a degree. My parents said, don't care what, just get a degree. So I have a master's degree in history that I do not use at all. And went that route, got a traditional job. And when I was in grad school, started investing in real estate. Bought my first property with my husband, who told me, I want nothing to do with this. I support you if you want to do it, but it's not my jam. It's not my thing. So we continued to buy properties, work as we could. And I kind of had the trades background, but I didn't have the license. So a handful of years in, after people started asking for help with projects, I got my general contractor's license because I wanted to be able to help people, but not have the liability if God forbid something happened. So I'd always tell my friends, hey, I'll walk you through it. I'll help you, but I can't come to your bathroom for you because I'm not insured. So got insured, did that for several years. Bought rental properties, bought and held mostly, but would buy distressed properties and fix them up and then hold on to them. And so did that for several years, just kind of whenever you can't afford to buy another one. Got my real estate license so I could be more in the real estate world. Bought a real estate brokerage. Now I still have my GC license, but only am working on my own properties unless a friend is really in a bind. Don't do, renovations for the public, and just kind of buy and hold and alternate with selling here and there when I need to inject capital back in. So that's kind of where we're at today.
I love it. Maybe I missed it. I don't know. You were talking so fast, but did you say where you are and where you invest?
We're in Wyoming. So
Okay.
I am in a small town in Wyoming called Rock Springs. It's an oil and gas town. It's an industry town, but it stays really steady because even when oil and gas go up and down, we have Trona, which windshields, Trona is in everything pretty much. And so it stays pretty steady. Rentals have always been good. I've invested personally in rentals. I worked for people for several years, but we've had them for maybe 13 or 14 years. And they've always been, now there's a margin, right? Sometimes they rent higher, sometimes they rent lower, but rentals have been really steady in our market. And so I have not had to go out of my market yet.
All right. So before we dig into maybe the contracting side, real estate side, I kind of want to start off with the comeback story. I think that's the first video that I actually saw of yours. That's why I think it was maybe your first episode coming back on the podcast, YouTube channel. But you mentioned being nervous to come back. What finally pushed you to hit record again after all this time?
I had been thinking about it for a while. I didn't want to come back with the podcast. And this is just the podcast. What I had started to do was I was making a lot of construction DIY content for people that maybe needed to tile a bathroom or anything, add a light, any project you might need to do as a homeowner and investor. And I was doing that on all my projects. So I continued to document that. But I had moved away from documenting the real estate investing advice and the real estate investing perspective. And I just had really felt like I wanted to do that again, but I didn't want to start, stop, start, stop. So I really marinated on it for a while before I decided to start doing that again. And I just had I feel like there are so many people online that are trying to sell you something, and I hear these things, and you have this new investor or somebody who wants to get into investing, and someone's trying to sell you a $20,000 mastermind, and I'm like, or use that as your first down payment. That's not I don't agree. I know that there's valuable things out there, I'm sure, for people, but I just feel like there's a lot of lost ethics whenever something blows up. And I feel like everyone will give you a little bit of information, but you got to buy this to get the rest. Or they're trying to sell you something at this huge price that would literally set you back. And so I thought I'm going to come back and just kind of document my process. But I just felt like I had been helped so much in learning about real estate because of the friends that I had. I don't think it's fair for me not to share what I know or what I'm learning as I go. But I also think it's hard when there's people with you have all these gurus, right? And whether it's real or not, they have hundreds and hundreds of properties. Well, what can I add to the conversation? And so I just wanted to make sure that I felt like I could add something that actually helped people before I decided to do it. And I thought about it and sat with it for a while and decided I felt like that was the right thing to do.
Was there like a specific moment though that like you felt like you still have something important to share? Was like did a friend reach out to you or anything and they needed help, or was there like a specific moment?
I still have people reach out to me locally all the time for real estate advice. And not just because I'm a real estate broker, but people that want to get into investing or want to make a plan to be able to do that down the road. So that always continued. But I think it was more around financial literacy. I've had a couple kind of stepping stones over the time period of thinking about it. And one was when somebody told me, did you know that you can get a bank account that you actually make money for having money in that bank account instead of like having fees, like just like an interest yielding bank account, right? And it was like to them. And then just seeing people not having access to basic financial literacy information that is then what you build a foundation to be able to move on and invest, because you got to get some things in order. Sometimes you can't invest right away depending on where you're at in your financial journey. Maybe you have to take a couple years to get that squared away and then move on. And I feel like there's a lot of shame. People don't want to talk about it. You either have somebody who's bragging and talking about not and maybe not bragging, just it's so far out of reach, you just feel like I'll never be there. Or you have people that are trying to sell you something, but there's not a lot of open spaces where people can talk about money and get help and resources and not be shamed. I was talking to some clients, and I remember talking to somebody about saving a down payment and just some basic financial literacy stuff. And I just thought, you would think it's more readily available for people, and it is if they know where to look for it. But I think people need to see more open financial conversations to see that that's a path for me. That's an option. Some people might not want to do it. Some people might not want to make those sacrifices. But from where we have come from, me and my husband, to what we've been able to build, anybody can do it. You just have to be willing to sacrifice and spend the time. And it's not easy. It's definitely not easy at all, but it's possible for anybody. And so I just felt the overwhelming urge that I can't not share what's been shared with me information wise.
Well, I'm glad you decided to start it again. Like I said, I've only been following you kind of for a short period of time, but I love a lot of the content you're putting out there, the DIY stuff, and I think that's like very unique because I'm trying to build like a kind of a community of different guests that I bring on and share their stories, and it's always hard to find women in the investing and real estate that want to come on the channel also and share their journey. But like you said, you've been in it for like maybe 18 years or so. in the real estate side and like the contracting and DIY stuff. So maybe you can talk about that journey of being in it for like roughly 18 years and being a woman. Do you have a different perspective on it and whatnot?
I don't think so. I think a lot of people, sometimes I think that people like to, it's like a race for how everyone wants this story of how hard it is. It's so hard as a woman. It's so hard as listen, I am so lucky that I have had the opportunities that I've had. And in my experience, which this may be different than somebody else's, being a female, to my knowledge, has never made me not get a job. It has never made me not be able to, when I was doing construction for other people, here and there, people would make rude comments. And I remember early on, I had to make the decision, do I want to be offended or do I want to take the paycheck? And so I remember going and bidding on a job several years ago, and somebody was like, well, is your husband going to lend you his tools? Are you going to borrow stuff from your husband to do this? And I'm like, so I remember going to talk to my husband, do I even want to deal with this? And then I'm like, dude's check is still going to cash. So I don't really care. And now I really don't care. But it's funny. We've had situations where, like, when we renovated our office, we'd bring subs in for the electrical or random pieces. And I remember I was talking to this guy going through our plan, and he wouldn't look at me and talk to me. My husband was there, which usually with a renovation, he's not. I don't know why he happened to be there. And he keeps talking to my husband, and my husband's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And my husband is very stereotypically masculine. He's tall, he's, military, former state trooper, like he's a tough looking guy, like what you would picture in construction. And he is not an interest to him. And so this guy, and my husband's like, you need to talk to her. I don't even know what you're talking about. And the guy just keeps talking to my husband, and he won't talk to me. And we went with somebody else, because I'm like, how can I communicate with you if I can't tell you like a change or but it was the weirdest situation. But no, it's never impacted me. Of my two real estate mentors, it was a husband and wife. And so I always worked with both of them and learned from both of them. And it's just not been, I don't think it's hurt me in any way. I think that I've just been, again, maybe rude comments here and there, but it hasn't made me not be able to make money or succeed in any way. So
Well, you spent nearly 2 decades working in both construction and real estate. So is there one that has taught you more about resilience?
probably real estate, because I think a construction job is shorter sighted. Even if you're working on a full big renovation, I'm going to get this piece done and I'm going to get paid, or I'm going to have more instant gratification. Real estate is really a long game. And investing in real estate, I never thought it wouldn't work, because I'm pretty risk adverse. So I'm not leveraging a lot. I'm not doing something that's very scary, or I'm going to lose everything if this falls apart. So it was just knowing this is 100% going to work, but it's a long timeline and you have to be patient. And so you're in those moments where you buy your first property. And if anybody's kind of gone the traditional route where you buy a house and you want to be able to hold it and go on and buy the next house, and your income hasn't gone up and you don't have the history of being an investor, then that looks like debt on your tax return. And so you either have to save enough to offset that on your next purchase. That 1 to 2, that is the biggest jump. That is the hardest piece. And so you're making a plan, but to get there is really hard. So in those early days, just knowing, I know where I'll be in the next this many years, but I want to be there now. And watching other people that are succeeding, and you'll be there, but you got to wait for that time to pass. I think that's really hard. Where if I do a bathroom, I get the bathroom done, it's pretty, I get paid. That's it. And so you really have to hold on for a long time with real estate investing.
So you've been both behind the walls and behind the deals. How has that shaped you, how you look at money, value, and ownership?
I think one of the hardest things for me, coming from the construction side of it, has been, I have to learn to step away a little bit. And this is something I have learned a little bit and been trying to learn in the last couple of years, is that in order to scale, I cannot do every piece myself. And I'll get so frustrated because I'll have a project going, and maybe I'll have two going at a time. And I'll say, okay, I'm going to do this over here and I'm going to hire these pieces out. And then you hire somebody and it's not a great experience. They don't do a great job. And I go and fix it. And my husband's like, why are you doing that? Everybody else that's an investor that is not a contractor, they have to hire things out. And when people mess them up, you have to hold them accountable and say, fix it, make it right. Or, find somebody. And I just go and I pay them and I don't call them back and I finish it myself. And then I never use that subcontractor again. And the problem is, if you're doing everything yourself, you can only get maybe 1 or 2 houses. If you're doing a good job, right? You can maybe only get 1 or 2 houses done in a year. And so I've had to learn to almost think of it like, what if I couldn't do this and go in and fix it and make it right? I would have to find someone that could fix it, or tell the contractor, hey, we're not happy with this. You have to fix it. Because to scale more than what I'm doing, I have to let people do some of the pieces. And so that's where I've stagnated. And the perspective that's hurt me is I have to do everything. No one can tile as good as me. No one can XYZ as good as me. And I know there's people that can. I just haven't found them yet and brought them into my sphere. But I have to separate and step out, or I'm never going to be able to scale what I'm doing. And that's been a detriment for sure that I'm seeing that I'm working on.
I think that's a very common thing. A lot of people that are contractors, kind of in our little community that we have, they kind of have that same sentiment where it's hard to find people that may do the same type of work that they do or to the same level. And it's like you're saying, it's kind of just having that understanding that they have to let go a little bit, and they all find that struggle at some point. But let's kind of dig also into you finding your voice online. Like I said, that's maybe you kind of talked about in one of your more recent videos, feeling like the internet was becoming a wasteland a little bit. So, kind of what made you feel that way?
There's just so much out there that I think you have to be, well, first of all, everyone's just putting everything out there, right? We see all these pages, or I think if anyone's ever tried to start a YouTube channel or an Instagram, or you have that handle that's just going to be perfect, right? It's going to be at this and it's my business, and you go and find it and it's taken, but the person hasn't posted in 7 years, but the stuff is still there. And you think of all this, I'm not very techie, but data storage, and there's just stuff everywhere. And some of it's valuable and some of it's not. But because everyone can put stuff out, it's almost like there's too much information, and you have to now sift through, especially now with AI, that people are just putting things out that are completely fake. They're not even actually real, or they'll make things look real. There's so much there, and now we have unlimited information, but you have to sift through all the junk and the fluff. And so that was a big part of my concern with the DIY stuff. People were responding to it, and I knew people needed it, because people would get on and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much, you saved me this much money. I couldn't, I didn't have the money and I had to fix my toilet or whatever. But with the real estate content, there's so much out there. I just thought, am I just another voice putting something out there, and is it actually valuable or helping anybody? And I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't another person like throwing a bag of garbage in the internet dump.
So, how do you find that balance between authenticity with what performs well with the algorithm? So, I'm sure you see a big difference, like you're saying, your DIY stuff. I'm sure there's probably a lot more views than just your general real estate content. Is that pretty accurate?
It is, and I don't know if that's because that's where I have focused for so long, but I really wanted to be able to build a community, because I think people are really alone. So for me, in my real estate journey, I love real estate investing, and it's all I want to talk about all the time. And everybody in my life's eyes are probably like glazing over. Like someone mentions maybe I want to get an investment property. Like I had a friend the other day, and they were talking about maybe looking down that route of keeping their property, buying another one that could be a house hack. So we'll rent our house, we'll buy one that we can live in part of and rent the other part of. Mentioned it to my husband. I wasn't even there. So I go to their office the next day, which they own their own business. So it's okay. It's not like and I'm like, so I heard, like, I really think you should do this. Here's how it changed our life. Here's how it will change your life. Like, I think that, and if you do the numbers, even though your payment's higher, it's actually offset. And, so it's my jam. But everyone in your life is like, shut up. We've heard it. We know. We don't care. We don't want to do it. And so with the DIY, people will come and they want your help for that project, but they're not going to stick around. Like my husband even told me, we have a food truck, and so he had to fix something with his fryers, and he went and found a YouTube video and watched the video about how to fix the fryers, and it helped him and saved him a bunch of time. But he's like, I'm not going to subscribe to that because I don't want to ever see a video about a fryer again. I don't even want to like it because I don't want to mess up my algorithm, because that's not the content I want to see. So while I'm really grateful for this video, I'm not commenting, I'm not liking, and I'm not subscribing. And when I look at my analytics on YouTube, I have a ton of, not a ton of, more views than I do subscribers. And then I have this core group, and a lot of those people are asking about the real estate investing piece, because that's where I'm saying, okay, we're renovating this property to rent, or we're renovating this one to sell, and here's why we're picking these finishes differently or putting different products in here. And people are latching on to that, like this core group. And so I know they want it, but as you're transitioning, is it going to scare some of the other people away? You just kind of got to figure it out. So the views are less on that type of content, but they're longer. So if I post a YouTube video, people are sticking around for longer. A DIY video, I think they're getting the piece they need and they're going. But the people that you're building the community that are messaging and they have more questions and there's more follow-up, that's the real estate piece.
See, people that don't start a channel will never quite understand what you just were talking about, right? Like they don't understand what we look at every day on our analytics and our watch hours and all that type of stuff. But you mentioned also being afraid of oversharing or being vulnerable online. So like, what's your boundary now?
So I think just I will talk about anything in specific. So if I was talking to a person, because I feel like if we're willing to have open conversations, it really helps people to understand the full situation and learn and grow. So if I was having an in-person conversation with anybody, I'm pretty much an open book. I'm pretty financially, I'm pretty willing to share that. But I think that I would share, okay, here's the numbers on this property. Here's how it kind of penciled out, but maybe after it's sold. So for instance, I'm doing a flip right now, I think, as long as the market doesn't change. And people have asked me to share the numbers. Well, it's going to go on the market and I'm going to sell it. And so I don't necessarily want to put that all there up front. After it is done, I will be happy to share those numbers once it has sold, but I am not going to share those numbers prior to it selling, because that may adversely affect my negotiation in some way if somebody happened to see the video of, oh, we're this much money into this project or something like that. And so, and then I think, I don't know how much of I would share of my whole financial picture, because, we own a real estate brokerage. We have a food truck. We have our investment properties. My husband does real estate photography, but I always think I would be open to share on this specific property. Here's what the numbers are looking at, but just not like the whole overarching thing would be where I feel right now.
Are you willing to share what type of food truck?
Oh yeah, it's chicken wings. So this is actually a pretty cool story. So we have won the National Buffalo Wing Festival 4 years in a row in Buffalo, New York. We go every year, and we wanted to. My husband and one of his childhood best friends. His friend is so good at recipes. So he started this in Laramie, Wyoming, which is where the University of Wyoming is, which is where Josh Allen went to college. And he would eat at the food truck when he was in college. And so every year, our friend wanted to get into the Buffalo Wing Contest, and they wouldn't let us in because we were food trucks, not brick and mortar. And so Josh Allen called and vouched for us in Buffalo, New York. And they're like, oh, okay, if Josh says you're good, you can get in. Went in, knocked it out of the water. Every year we go back and do awesome. And so now we had asked my friend who has the one in Laramie, we're in a different town in Wyoming, will you open one here? We think it would do really well. And he didn't want to go that far. So we built a franchise model. So we have the first franchise. And since then, he has sold several other franchises it's called Double Dubs. And so 4 years in a row, champs, National Buffalo Wing Festival. And it's just, Trent, who's the brainchild of it, we call him the saucier. He is so good at coming up with sauces. It's like the skills that people have where people are so good at something so specific. He is a magician at coming up with sauce recipes. They're so good.
Well, we might have to do another interview or follow up, or you have a new channel. I think maybe you could come up with or do you have one for your food truck? I don't know.
Oh, YouTube? No, I don't have time to do that. Nope, not doing it.
All right. So kind of let's get back to the real estate stuff. But what advice would you give to someone who feels like they have something to say but are scared of being judged or trolled online?
I think you have to decide if it's for you because it is not for everybody. And I did not start my channel for many, many years because I knew I was not in a position where I don't take criticism well. I'm better now, but years ago it would have really hurt me. And so you can get, and anybody that has a channel, I'm sure you know this, you'll get 99% likes on your videos and you're like, what's that 1%? Why don't they like it? Or this one rude person, you have all these positive comments and then this rude person will ruin your day. So I think you really have to ask yourself, is this going to mess with my peace of mind, or can I be happy and learn to filter out and ignore? Because it's just not for everybody. And then my piece of advice would be, if you decide you want to do it, is film 50 videos, no pressure, and just tell yourself, I'm not posting these. Make all your videos, all your content. And then if you decide at some point they start getting to a level where you're comfortable with them, or maybe of your 50 videos, you like 20 of them or 7, or the 51st video is good. The thing is, almost everybody has a phone now with a camera on it, and it's pretty good quality, and you can start there. And so I think just having this no pressure, this isn't live. Nobody has to ever see this unless I want them to see this. I can cut any portion out of this that I need to cut out of it. I can refilm it 7 times. People freeze with the camera, and it's strange to me because no one even knows no one even knows you filmed that unless you tell anybody and you share it. So if you can just get used to it, like if you're talking to a person, and then if you ever want to put them out, then you can, but take the pressure off yourself and realize this never has to go anywhere unless I want it to.
And go watch one of Emily's recent real estate market recaps. She has her cat running around in the background, knocking things over. So yeah, like you said, just press record, film it, and you can put out there what you want to put out there, right?
And for me, my cat is either I let the cat be in the room, or the cat is either crying at the door. So you have to make a decision of what are you going to do?
You touched on it earlier about having, I think, a couple as your mentor, but you mentioned people always say find a mentor, but no one says how. So how did you find yours?
That's my thing. I just got lucky. It was just, things click together in your life. I was not even looking. It was years of working for them before I decided, oh, maybe I should actually invest in real estate too. And so that's why I think people that have information and have been on the path, that's why we have to share with people that don't have access to that, because I don't know how you go up to somebody. I mean, honestly, all I can think of is being willing to work for free. But if someone came to me and said, hey, I want to learn, I'll work for free, I would never let anybody work for me for free. I think you have to find what their pain points are, because again, I just got lucky and I did. It was something that I fell into. But so for me right now, I will have people message me sometimes and say, hey, I want to learn. Do you need an assistant? But it's never like I've tried to bring people on as office managers and stuff like that. And I'm always trying to help somebody. So I bring a ton of time into training them. And then but it's actually more work for me. And so I've had to stop and say, no, I can't keep doing that because it's taking a ton of my time and it's not helping me. I'm trying to help them, but it's not helping me. So I think you'd have to find someone's pain points. And so for me, for example, right now, I need a video editor. And so I am editing all my own videos, but that's something I would like to outsource. And then something I have started to outsource a little bit is some of my construction, because I'm learning to try to hire some things out. So if somebody started to do my construction pieces and they wanted to learn, I'm going to be around them a lot. And so if they want help or tips and tricks, or they want to learn about investing, I don't want them to work for free, but by being around each other, we're talking, we're chatting because we're working on the same houses, stuff like that. Or for instance, I have a friend who's an electrician that's been doing work for me. He wanted to start getting into investing, got a hold of me. What's your perspective on this property? How should I approach this? How should we do this? Because we're already working together and I'm happy to help. But I think you have to fill a void that they need to make it worth not just hey, let me drop everything and come meet with you at your schedule. Because I'd have people even in the real estate brokerage, I want to get my real estate license, but I work 8 to 5 and I can only train after hours. And so I would just work my whole schedule around them to try to help them and realize, man, I'm really setting all my businesses back. And I can't do that anymore. So I think if you want to find somebody who you want to mentor you, how can I fit around their schedule and make their life easier and not harder? Because now I'm saying if you make my life harder, it's just a no. It's an automatic no. And I don't mean to be unkind, but I just can't do that anymore. And so how can I relieve some of their pain points? And don't come and say, hey, I really want to learn. Say like, what are you looking to fill and how can I fill those spots and just be around you and learn from you? Because my mentors, I was just around them because I was doing maintenance. It wasn't like, hey, let's have a listen about real estate today. I was doing maintenance, I was doing repairs, and by osmosis and watching, I learned.
All right, in your comeback video, you kind of mentioned work hard for 10 years, even when no one's watching. So, what does that decade look like for you in hindsight?
It went a lot faster looking back than it went as I was moving forward. um, I think, like I said, I always knew what I was doing would work, but it's just a bummer when you're waiting and you are doing a lot of really hard work and it's going to be worth it, but in that moment you're struggling. I have had many times where I'm in the middle of a project and again, I knew it would be over. I knew it would be worth it. I always have had a very far-sighted mindset, but I think that's hard for a lot of people because people want what's easy right now. And I think that's why people make financial decisions. I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Psychology of Money, and it talks about how people will buy like the lowest income portion of the population doesn't have $400 for an emergency fund, but they spend on average 400 and something dollars a year on lottery tickets because there's that little glimmer of hope. And I also remember I used to, sorry, I should have silenced my phone. I used to, when I would do maintenance in a trailer park, I would see all these people renting these trailer homes and then and they're renting, they're not buying, so they're always going to be beholden, right, to the person that owns this property. But I would see these really expensive cars. And I would always think, especially back then when prices were different, that car costs as much as a crummy fixer upper house. I mean, literally, that car is a house, but maybe they could get a loan for the car, but they can't get a loan for the house because of the way mortgages work and car financing works. It's just a different situation. So instead of getting it right, getting their finances right so they could get a loan for a house, the car is the short-sighted, oh, I get a win now, or the buying the maybe a little trip or spending money on frivolous things, that's exciting now, but it's preventing the long-term things you can do. And so I just think you have to delay gratification for a really long time. I mean, I literally used to do tile jobs because I would do a lot of bathrooms and floors and stuff out of my hatchback Honda CRV because I did not want to buy a truck. And I would fold the seat down and I would put my tile saw and all this stuff in my hatchback. Like there's memes making fun of people at Home Depot like this. But I was like, I am not going to buy a truck. And especially like everyone has fancy big lifted trucks around here because it's going to set me back from being able to buy my next property. And it was not until I found a used truck that was a good price. And I realized I was holding myself back on jobs because there were times where I'd have to borrow my dad's truck or I'd have to borrow a truck from my real estate investor mentor and whenever I could get one. And there was a point where the purchase had to be made to move forward, but I literally tiled out of a hatchback for many, many years. And so delaying that gratification, I didn't even want a truck. I wanted the convenience of a truck. And there was a point that financially made sense. And so making those choices year over year over year, not just for 1 year, not just for 2 years. I mean, you got to do it for a long time. And I still have that truck. I do not have a new truck. I still use it. It works fine. It works for construction. I do not need it because if I buy a truck, that's a down payment on the next property. And so I could have a car or I can have another property. And so it's just thinking like that for a really long time. When people are like, why are you doing this? You're crazy. Why are you working so many hours? Why are you, and the conversations people have with you that don't have the same mindset as you in kind of a degrading manner. Like, I know what I'm doing. There's a plan. Like it's happening, but you got to do it for a long time.
Yeah, I think do it for a long time. And like you mentioned, I think the important thing is delayed gratification. And a lot of people, you said, work hard for 10 years. And a lot of people need to realize like you can't build wealth overnight. But when you realize that 10 years is actually fast, right? So it's an interesting way to look at it, right? So some people are thinking 10 years is not a quick time to build wealth, but if you compare it to people working 30 to 40 years, it's definitely a fast way to build wealth. So delayed gratification is super important. So let's wrap it up with, if you could leave one message behind for the next generation of women in trades or DIY, what would it be?
Uh, d Does anybody watch Chit? Have you seen the Chit skits? He's a comedian, and his thing
Mm,
is, "Do it, lady." He always just
no?
says, "Do it, lady." So there's on TikTok, on Instagram, it's just a comedian that makes skits, and Chit is his character. He's this really silly office guy, but his tagline is, "Do it, lady." Just do it. I know that sounds so dumb, but, like, you're gonna do it or you're not. And the thing I find with investing is, and I've had clients and people that have reached out to me over and over again over the years, the time is going to pass anyway. And if you spend all your time looking for, and I'm not saying go into bad deals, but looking for the perfect deal, waiting for the perfect time in the market, waiting for the perfect time in your life, waiting for interest rates to go down, waiting for prices to go down, waiting for inflation to go down, whatever you're waiting on, and then you realize, oh, 3 years have passed, 4 years have passed. And I think it's really easy psychologically to feel like you're doing something because you're researching. Maybe you're reading books, maybe you're listening to podcasts, maybe you're listening to masterminds, or you are analyzing deals, or you're meeting with a coach. And then you realize, okay, and I didn't do anything. You got to start somewhere. And maybe you're starting somewhere is, I'm getting a second and third job to save up enough money for my first down payment. Maybe you're in the very beginning trenches of it, but you just have to do it. Time is on your side in real estate. And so I look at the properties I bought originally and where they're at now. A lot of the value add is just in the price point having gone up over time. And so when I go to sell those, just that long hold is really what's going to build my wealth versus those month on month returns. And so you have to do it. You can't just get this analysis paralysis, because it's really easy to feel like you're actioning when you're researching and learning, but you're not doing anything. So pay attention to that if you're just studying, but you're not doing.
I love that. Well, I'm glad you decided to start your podcast, YouTube channel again, but where can people reach out or find you on social media?
All right. So my YouTube is, you have it at the bottom. It's at You Can DIY Home. And on there, I have hundreds of DIY videos of probably anything you would need to do if you are DIYing some of your investing stuff, or maybe even in your own home. I try to have a lot of detailed stuff in there. So that's my YouTube channel, which I'm starting to stream my podcast on, which is also wherever you find podcasts. But my podcast is so small, I think it's hard to find unless you follow a link. But the podcast is called My House Podcast. And then you can follow me on Instagram if you want to actually connect and message. Obviously, that's a little harder on YouTube. They don't have so many features. My Instagram is at emily.a.lopez, and that's a little bit less formal than my YouTube channel. And you can message and ask questions and stuff on there.
All right. Well, thank you for doing this. Next time we'll have you on, we'll have a poll though. Do you look more like Julia Roberts or Jennifer Gardner? Right. So, but thank you for doing this, and we'll have you back on. And everyone, thanks for tuning in.
Thanks.